Welcome to the Lovecraft tapes, or if you're watching this on our YouTube channel as we're broadcasting, welcome to the Livecraft tapes. Thanks, Snow. I am Jeremy, your keeper of arcane lore, and we play Call of Cthulhu, a horror role-playing game based upon the fictional works of H.P. Lovecraft.
Slow down.
Am I going too fast? I'm trying to.
I don't know. Are you going too fast? You might be going a little bit quick. You might want to slow down so people know what I'm saying.
Your investigators of the unknown are Brian, as Special Agent Jack Whiteside.
I'll get him. Hold on.
Hey, how's it going? This is Jack.
That's the same bit.
Yeah, we're starting over.
Yeah, all right. Gabe is Special Agent Roy Arroyo.
Under my contract, I don't have to be in character through this.
And Matt is Detox.
It'd be kind of hard for me to be in character because of... And then from there, it was just all downhill.
Nice. Okay. Sorry, I had to mute my Google Hangout. Welcome, players. Tonight we'll be answering listener-submitted questions regarding our recently completed scenario, Chapter 7, Bloodlines. Spoiler alert, we'll be discussing all the nitty-gritty details of this adventure, so if you haven't listened yet, I highly recommend you go back to episode 56 and start there.
We'll wait. Go.
Yep, and go. Same bit. Now, before we begin, we do need to thank our generous patrons who have contributed to the podcast via patreon.com. Their selfless monetary support has helped pay for hosting, editing software, music, sound effects, and other costs associated with production, including sexual reassignment for Gabe. Mm-hmm. Without them, we'd probably be talking into tin cans with string tied between them. All blood sacrifices are coordinated by the cultists of the Starry Wisdom, including our dynamic duo of the Demir Lobotomist and Ravens in the Attic. Blessings tenfold to our lone mystic of the occult, Jordy Rose. Our single investigator of the unknown, Wayne Stubblefield, desperately requires assistance and more flashlight batteries. Meanwhile, there is a gathering of professors at Miskatonic, including Mitch L., Eric Miles, Brownie Davis, Anthony Imes, John Imray, Wouter Vermeyen, Eric Gordon, David Winterman, Eric Zane, Frank Delventhal, Chris Parker, Olda Polkert, Lobster Johnson, and Brittany Davis. Coffee and cake will be served in the library. Lastly, our students at Miskatonic, Eric Setterberg, Eric Phillips, Snow, Malambra 57, Milkamix, and Rolling Boxcars should report to the gym for an assembly first thing tomorrow morning.
Oh.
Who's Jim?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm a doctor, not a teacher.
We did a reverse on that one. Thank you, one and all, for making this podcast possible and for keeping Cthulhu at bay with your thoughts and prayers and chants and spells. Now, dear investigators, we recap Chapter 7, Bloodlines.
Hell House.
My life, too.
Previously on the Lovecraft tapes. After their misadventures in Louisiana, Dan, Jack, and Roy recuperate back home in Arkham for the next year. The pain and horror fades slightly as their tight-knit partnership drifts apart. Before they realize what's happened, Jack and Roy discover Dan has gone off the grid in search of a way to reach the dearly departed Samantha Blaine. A mysterious newcomer, known only as Detox, offers to help the two FBI agents in their search. Clues lead them to a decommissioned government research center on Bloodsworth Island in the Chesapeake Bay, wherein they discover the still living remains of dangerous experiments. Squeak, squeak. During an altercation, Detox is infected with a zombie-like virus and quickly turns against the other two. Sadly, Detox is brought low, after which Jack and Roy flee the haunted ruins straight into the arms of an unseen force awaiting them outside.
Was it an angel? Was it the arms of an angel?
God damn it, Sarah McLachlan, go away.
And all right, so let's get to some questions. And we do thank everybody for contributing questions on our Reddit page and Discord and all the social media channels where we pluck these. And so we're going to get straight to it. We're going to ask that same question where the rest of the people popped in and told us we had no audio. This is for our viewers and listeners. And you feel free to pipe in via chat here or send us a message later after the broadcast. Did you like the change in episode release structure this season, wherein we didn't inject tales between each of the episodes? Did you like the flow of the episodes just proceeding, even though there was a gap and delay between each of the episodes being released? Or did you prefer the previous seasons where we interjected a little bit of fictional interludes between, just to keep the schedule week to week to week to week? Did you enjoy the consistency of the weekly schedule, or would you rather just stick to the main storyline? And you guys can answer this as well. Brian?
Yes.
Gabe?
You know, I've had a little bit more time to think about this since the first time we did it.
10 minutes ago?
Yeah, I actually do kind of miss it more than I thought. After playing Samantha for so long, and then hearing that interlude of her doing the research and the tentacle and the officer coming in to assist, I thought that was freaking cool closure a little bit for me on my character. Because I kind of left her out there. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And the gaps that get filled, in, it not only just fills in the gaps, but it also helps carry the story. You actually get to experience what happened while we were having our adventure. Mm-hmm. So we get to see what was happening behind the scenes as well. Yeah. So as a player, I really did appreciate being able to hear those. I do love the pacing of being able to do episode to episode and keeping the story going. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I honestly can say I do miss them. I think they were really cool, a cool addition.
Okay. And Gabe, how about you?
Hated them.
My opinion hasn't changed, unlike somebody's. Well, basically, I much prefer the pacing, but I like the freedoms that the Lovecraft tales provide, because I can do things that I'm not allowed to in the main story. And I do notice that you took them away right as I started writing them.
Damn it, he figured us out, Jeremy. We got to get out of here.
Run, everybody,
run. And Matthew?
I did enjoy getting those little fill-in snippets in between episodes that just kind of gave, especially because you were the one who did them, we heard nothing about them ahead of time.
Right.
So it was even a little bit of a surprise for us to kind of see, kind of some of the ramifications of things that we were doing outside of, the investigation. But on the other hand, being able to go straight through the whole story, start to finish, and not having to be like, okay, what was this? And where does this happen? And where was I last time? And just being able to, flow right through the story. Yeah. All of those is really nice.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a sort of a tightrope walk, because I really enjoyed, number one, I enjoyed writing them. But number two, I really enjoyed the fact that I could inject some sort of surprise for you guys.
Yeah, that was cool.
Beyond just what the scenario unfolds, you could also throw you some curveballs or seeds of curveballs. Mm-hmm. I planted many seeds over the course of, I don't know, chapters 3 through 6.
How much child support do you owe?
That's a whole lot of seeds.
Jesus, man.
But a lot of those weren't even, they never came to anything, but they allowed me to have the ability to latch onto something if I needed to.
Well, and they influenced the way I played the next time we played, to be totally honest with you. After hearing those, when we were able to, get back into it and do another episode, that was in my forethought. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. That's curious, but so that I would view that as a negative then.
Yeah, I would too, but I had to fight to not play the character knowing that information, because you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like knowing that, for going back to the Samantha thing where she's got the tentacle and she's reading the book and has to sever the tentacle. After hearing that as myself, I couldn't obviously know that as a character. So I had to play it like I had no idea where she was at and what she had done and what was going on.
Yeah.
And that was difficult for me. But as a person listening to it, I thought that was a really cool addition.
Yeah.
To the story.
And Brittany says on the chat there that she really enjoys the interludes, or enjoyed the interludes, and they helped flesh out the story. And that was the intention, just to sort of, give it a little bit more depth to let the listener know that there was a lot more going on that the investigators didn't know. But of course, it was a little crazy. Yeah, and Madeline chimes in and says, "So what I'm hearing is we should still get tales, but players have to wait." And how do you, all I could say is I could instruct the players not to listen to them, but
it'd be on the honor.
No way.
That's tough.
Yeah, there's no way you could actually physically stop us.
And that's what led us.
Jeez, Matt,
you can't stop me.
I hate you.
He's trying to listen to one, and Jeremy just shows up out of nowhere and sticks his fingers in your ears.
But it's
sounds nice.
But that's what
Double wet Willie.
That's what led us to the whole prologue and epilogue. So I could still do those little, and they wouldn't necessarily affect the players' actions. So but we did, to be honest, we did Chapter 7 eliminating the tales as sort of an experiment to see how it would go and how people would react. So it's good to have this feedback, and I really appreciate.
In my opinion, I like the tales. Maybe not as frequent,
right?
But I really did like them. They really tied the whole scenario together.
Right.
It was pretty cool.
Okay, looks like we lost Gabe.
Hopefully he'll be back. Windows update.
Yeah, Windows update.
Oh, hey, welcome back, Gabe.
Please reboot. Okay,
she's back. Stop talking about him.
All right, we got a lot of questions to get to, so let's go on here. While we got Gabe, let's ask him one from one of our listeners. Someone wants to know, what's it like having only played Roy in the main campaign?
I hadn't really thought of it like that, just because I have a background, so I feel like I've played Call of Cthulhu as more people, but I suppose in this situation, I feel old because everyone around me is dying, and I'm just a constant because I'm playing as such a preservationist, and I just want to keep going because I want to live. There was a comment on Discord. I want to live through 4 more incarnations of their characters before I die.
Yeah, that's it is weird because of all the people, of all the characters, investigators who have played all through this stuff, you've played the most recklessly, and so at every turn I expect Roy to die.
I play recklessly, but I also understand I am afraid. My character is afraid of everything, so he's reckless when he feels he has the power, and then when anything goes wrong, he becomes a total self-preservationist.
I do like that a lot. I think Roy's fun. He's a fun guy, but you've come so close to death so many times. Mm-hmm. I'm shocked and amazed whenever you walk away.
I've had a lot of luck despite only having 20 luck.
Yes.
All right, Matt. Here's one for you. Excuse me. Roy closes. How much backstory do you have for Detox?
Oh, I had a good chunk of stuff hidden behind her that I had plans to release over the next,
Behind who?
You said her.
Behind who?
Him or her. I don't know, maybe.
Her. Yeah?
I had a good chunk of stuff that was kind of planned to go out over the next few chapters. One of the things that I wanted to do is if I made it through 7 at some point, I was going to kind of settle up to Jack and actually give him Detox's real first name.
Ooh.
But now that they're dead, you never actually get to know what their real first name is. So I'd like where they grew up. I had family and a bunch of stuff that I'd kind of set out ahead of time, but now all of it just kind of goes poof into the ether because no more Detox.
Just so everybody knows, Matt is very detail oriented, and when he makes a character, he goes back to almost birth. And I'm not even kidding on that.
No, he's right. I love
the detail that he puts into the
creation.
character. He actually can become the character easier that way, which is why it's so much fun to play with Matt in these games, because a lot of the times he'll stay in the character the whole time. So when you're playing, even if you're taking a little breather, he's still got the hello, we're gonna have a shrimp on the baby.
So
and it's fun because you're like do I call him Detox or Matt or but yeah, it was a little sad for me seeing that come to an end, because I know how hard you worked on that. That character.
That's like a good chunk of the fun for me, though, is I love when I'm making a character is creating that world around them and coming up with they like to do this thing or they're this way, but why are they like that? And how do you, explain, and how do you point out all the little quirks and things that make them a more human character?
Right.
And digging in and doing that research and that planning is probably the most fun part of it for me.
Okay, nice. Thank you. Brian, why don't we have one for you?
Nah, I'm good.
This question is, when you ended up playing Loveland at short notice, how hard was it coming up with the character on the fly?
Surprisingly, it was easier than I thought. I had very little time. What did we have? Like maybe a few days? Was that?
I think so. Yeah, I think.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Because you were like, I think I'm going to have you play this.
Yeah.
Let me know what you think. It's an older gentleman. He's a doctor. Blah 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 blah. I don't really do voices, so when I got to the point and we actually started to play the actual scenario where he was introduced, that's when I picked that voice. And actually had to realize I had to stick with it through the whole scenario. That was a nightmare on my throat, but it once I started it, I fell into the character, and it was just so much fun. I wouldn't even mind, honestly, playing a character similar to that again. Just being carefree and saying whatever you want and letting it go. That was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's why when I plan crazy voices for my characters, I practice ahead of time, so I kind of can tell if my throat is going to be able to handle, doing that voice contiguously for, an hour and a half, 2 hours. And I try and steer away from things that are, within 10 minutes. I'm like, oh God, I need to stop.
Was it possible?
Crikey.
It's actually kind of why I moved up here a little bit, is because if you drop it down, it can get slightly more grumbly, which it kind of starts to grind in the back of my throat. So I just moved to higher up in here and kind of raise the pitch a little bit.
Tell us more about grinding in the back of your throat.
No, don't.
Yeah, please.
This
don't.
week on the Throne Voice podcast.
All right. I've got a question here for me. Someone submitted. Did you expect the PvP, player versus player, between Jack Roy and mutated Detox? And the answer to that is absolutely not. I had no clue as to how this was going to go. I knew that it was going to be extremely dangerous and that there was a high potential for one or all of the investigators to become infected and essentially just die. I just knew it was a very tough scenario, but I felt that we were at the stage that it would have been okay. It is odd that it was Detox who succumbed, because they seem to be a lot more savvy and wary, like very protective, self-protective, and probably would have, but they just got into a really bad situation, and it was kind of heartbreaking, but it was also kind of cool when it happened. So even though I didn't expect it, I was more or less happy the way that it turned out, because it provided some high stakes without damaging too much of the core of what the Lovecraft tapes is. Because if everybody died, then we'd really have to start over.
Right.
With, sort of, brand new characters all around and coming in. I mean, it's bound to happen. This is Call of Cthulhu, and anytime you get into combat situation where you're not, running
Prepared.
full tilt,
Yeah.
then you're probably going to die. And
I think
that's
Roy
just-
will survive.
Well, so
Stop
far
saying
he's
that.
It was close for Jack
You're gonna jinx
because
it.
it was a real
Shotgun
close roll
to
for
the face?
that rat bite, that
Oh,
mouse
that
bite.
too.
Oh Lord, yeah, that was
That was
rough.
really
I
close.
think you had to spend luck or something, didn't you?
Yeah,
in order
yep,
to
but not a
avoid
lot, but still enough. Yeah.
that? Yeah. So Roy
Interesting.
would have had to battle two people potentially,
Mhm.
two things.
He wouldn't have battled. He'd just go up the elevator and leave, grab his damn copy
If I had
machines
seen
and
the writing on the
see,
wall, I might have.
shredders.
Yeah, I think. Anyways, okay, so we'll get there.
Interestingly enough, about the PvP, I had threatened to beat the crap out of Detox in every episode and before and after every episode too. So
True.
So I should have expected it, is what you're saying.
yeah,
All right, I understand you guys have a few questions, so why don't we go down the
Yeah.
line and just have Brian? Why don't you start us off with one?
All right, I got one for Matt. What would you have done differently in this past scenario if you could go back in time and change?
I wouldn't get distracted by the freaking computers.
Yeah.
Like honestly, I think if I would have taken a split second to maybe look a little closer at the room instead of being Detox, technology.
Yeah, server
and-
room.
Yeah. That, and if I wouldn't have actually, the thing that probably did it was the fact that both you and Gabe pushed me to spend the luck that got me to open that door in the first place. And I initially was
Roy
just going
did?
to let that. I was just initially going to let that stand and be like, oh, I guess I can't get in there. But
You had 60 some luck, buddy.
I know, and I wanted to keep her as kind of a lucky character. Like I wanted that element.
Keep who?
of-
look, it was kind of halfway revealed halfway through the scenario.
I know.
Yeah, the writing was on the wall. So
Yeah.
well. All right, Gabe, you got a question for somebody?
For Jeremy.
Yeah.
Nah, I'll wait. That's a better question. I'll save that for later. Matt.
I didn't expect the Spanish Inquisition.
Nobody expects
does.
a Spanish Inquisition.
Who do you prefer, and which one was the fake name based off of? Julio Estrada the composer or Julio Estrada the wrestler?
Well, actually, now that you think about it, I kind of like the composer better, but the name Julio Estrada came from a random name generator that I pulled up while we were playing. I literally went onto Google, typed in random name generator, and pulled the first thing that popped up, and it just happened to be Julio Estrada. And I was just going to, every single time we went to a new town or city, do the exact same thing and change the name every single time.
Oh, nice.
Sounds like some money's going to be sent to these people.
Copycat. All right, Matt, you got a question for us?
Yeah, I have a question for both Gabe and Brian. After seeing, what happened to Detox and the fact that it's not super difficult for anybody to die around here, if you had no way out and you knew your character was going to die, what would be like the most badass ending for your character?
Ooh, wow. If I like in this scenario or just in general?
Just in general, at some future point, you're like, oh, I'm trapped. There's no way out of this. What would be the most badass way to bring Jack Whiteside to his ultimate conclusion?
I would probably honestly end it myself after everything that he's been through and everything that he's seen. And I'd let my sister know that I'm coming to see her.
Ooh, ouch. Dark.
That's less badass than mine.
Is it like Sanford and Son, where you're like, Elizabeth, I'm coming.
Coming to see you.
All right. So don't make this happen because I don't want it to. But if I had to die, which I don't realistically ever have to die, I'll live forever. I want it to be both Raymond and Dan are in mortal danger, and I realize that the only way out is I sacrifice myself. So I get up and D'Angelo starts playing, and then I go to save the day, and Larry Bird joins me, and we both start taking jump shots, and we have our last basketball game, and then I go in and like a Mass Effect 2 suicide mission to save everybody.
Watch out for his face mask.
Spoilers. Mass Effect 2. Jeez. All right.
There's a question on the chat.
Yep, I
also.
see that. Brittany asks, Jeremy, does Roy's antics hurt or help your creative process?
Honesty is the best
Honesty is the
policy.
best policy. Okay, so yeah, when we started this podcast, we realized, but we don't really have a background. At least I don't have a background in the yes and philosophy, right?
Improv.
So we've really tried to do that, and I come from a D&D background initially, where things are very tightly controlled, and you've got you tend to keep a tighter grip because there's so many rules involved in D&D. Whereas Call of Cthulhu, it's a little more free form, it's more narrative driven, and I've struggled. I've had my struggles with embracing that change and allowing characters to do things that would push the envelope. I will say, clearly anybody who's watched the YouTube videos can probably point to one particular episode where there was a little bit of friction, and so we won't relive that stuff. But yes, I would say that that's something that I need to work on, because when I do embrace it and allow it to fuel the creative process, it works out better. In the long run, everybody's happy. We're having fun. It goes in a direction that I maybe didn't anticipate. And the beauty of this is I typically write from episode to episode. So even though we have an overall structure for the storyline, whatever the characters do influences how the next episode is going to pan out. So it could change dramatically. And I just need to be better at recognizing that opportunity and being less resistant to things that fall outside the plan. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We do have a question from Chris Parker to Gabe. What D'Angelo song, and why is it? How does it feel?
All right, I just like to appreciate that you absolutely derailed my thought process when I saw you put that in the chat. So to answer your question, the D'Angelo song that I would pick is "Send It On," but actually and why is it? How does it feel? Because "Send It On" is a crap song, and "How Does It Feel" is the best D'Angelo song, and it's such an emotional roller coaster that if you're gonna have a suicide mission, it might as well be to that song.
Nice. I'm sad to say I don't know who D'Angelo is, but okay.
There's this great thing called Google where you type in questions and it gives you information.
It's just so much to do.
Okay, Google.
No, don't say it.
And everywhere, a million devices go on.
And if nobody has noticed, I have the general voice for all Google. I can activate anybody's Google.
Nice. Okay, let's get on to some more of these submitted questions. This is for the group, actually. Hi, Robert. How are you? Thanks for joining. This is for the group. It says, horror tends to be viewed as a railroad-prone genre in both fiction and tabletop play. Do you think your genre awareness, or rather enjoyment of the tropes and archetypes, generally helps everything move more smoothly in a direction that you as a group find interesting? Or do you sometimes find yourself doing things just because you think that's how it goes?
Oh, no. I don't. I act like I feel the character should act. Like all the background and research that I did for my character, I will react the way that I think he should. Mm-hmm. Regardless of if it's good for the party, if it's good for the story, if it's good for the scenario. Yeah, I will react the way that he believes that he should. Okay. That's just me. But talk to Matt.
Talk to Matt.
Well, I mean, knowing enough of the things about the tropes of horror films, and you start to see where they can fit in. In some cases, it's kind of fun to lean into them, only to purposefully, rug out from underneath people at the last second. Is like subvert that, and sometimes it's really fun just to go with it all the way through, because it can end up making things a little more interesting than you initially had imagined things in your head. Mm-hmm. So they definitely a great way to kind of add to things, even though everyone kind of knows what they are. It's that familiarity can be really helpful at times. either to, help move things along or to kind of, like I said, subvert for comedic effect most of the time, let's be honest.
Nice.
Yeah, at some point, one or the other or a few of us has to keep it going, move it forward. Because otherwise, if we let ourselves go, we will be in a loop for hours.
Right.
Just because we know each other so well and we play off each other's sense of humor, we would just go around and around and around if we didn't have the one person to be like, oh, what's this over here? We got to move forward here.
Yeah.
You know.
Gabe, any thoughts on that?
Well, for me, I definitely just try and keep true to what the character is. However, I do recognize that the only way to truly grow a character is to show changes. So I as you've seen in times of crisis, I try and break up the slapstick starlings of Royo Royo and bring in more serious attitudes every once in a while, because it's the only way to convey that. It's my way of saying, hey, look, this is a real person. He's not one-dimensional.
Nice. Cool. And I'll chime in too. Of all of these folks, I'm probably the most aware of the horror genres and archetypes. I swim and breathe and live in horror. And I understand completely what you're talking about. So especially when you talk about role-playing games, horror does tend to be very railroad prone because the central storyline needs to be adhered to in order to get the full emotional effect. When you take things like D&D, or translate that to video games like Skyrim, you have all these side quests. In horror, you really don't have a whole lot of side quests. You have clues that pertain to the main quest, but you seldom have something that's going to divert you too much away. You can't stray away from the main storyline, and that as a result becomes very railroad prone. And I guess what I like to do is, like Matt said, to his point, is lean in to those genre stereotypes, if only to elevate the horror for the players, and tap into that, because I know that they know this particular movie or this particular book or trope, then I can leverage that. I can get inside their brain and sort of make them think that something's going on when it's something completely different, simply by tapping into those archetypes. So,
you think horror can't have side quests? Explain Halloween 3 Season of the Witch.
Yes.
That's not a side quest. That's a diversion. That's got nothing to do with Michael Myers. So
that's what we call a spin-off.
More days till Halloween.
Anyways, yeah, we could keep doing it. I love the movie, but
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move along. We got a few more questions here. This is for Matt and Gabe and Brian. Is it noticeable when you're playing a pre-written scenario versus one written by Jeremy?
One more time?
Is it noticeable when you're playing a pre-written scenario, so a commercial one, versus one written by Jeremy?
No, because I haven't read a lot of scenarios, and Jeremy's great, so he changes enough to make it his own.
What's a scenario? Oh, I almost got a nose spit. No, it's I don't know. I've known my brother a long time.
That's true.
And he's always told me stories. He's always written stories. I honestly couldn't tell you the difference while playing if he had written it or if somebody else had written it. It probably, if I were to pick it apart, I could probably find a little spot here and there just because he knows me so well, where he might have put something in that he knew I would react to. But again, anybody here could have reacted to it. You know what I'm saying? So, no, I honestly, the difference, it wouldn't have been obvious to me.
Okay.
The only reason I knew we were playing a scenario that you had written is because we talked about it ahead of time. And you're
right.
Like, yeah, I'm writing this one for you guys as a first time ever custom just for the podcast scenario. I think if you wouldn't have told us that ahead of time, I wouldn't have been able to tell the difference. That, and like Gabe was right. You know just how to tweak it enough to kind of bring it off just being a straight A to B kind of thing, to where it feels like it's maybe a little more custom to us versus just here's the general audience, go at it kind of thing.
Yeah.
Gabe, were you going to interject something there?
I need to reword because I need to get all of our plugs in. I could tell the one that Scott Dorward wrote because he's great too.
Yes.
That is true, though. Yeah, he's really
Texas
respect that man. He's awesome.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and
a good time.
I think there was a moment actually when I felt a little bit of pride when Brian asked me, I think towards the end of My Life, chapter 5, when he was like, so are you writing this or is it? And I had to come clean because up until chapter 5, I never told him whether or not it was a published thing. Right. I just had a scenario for him, so they never really knew. They knew that when we had to write certain things to stitch things together, but beyond that, they didn't realize until chapter 5 or 6 that it was a published commercial scenario. So, and of course, now I'm like, well, I need time to write this, so this is going to be a little bit longer between times. So when we did chapter 6, then that was a little bit longer of a lead time. So, Brittany asks, and this is a very pertinent question that this harkens back actually to chapter 6, but it's still pertinent. Brittany asks, after Hubert's close encounter
quotation,
I've been wondering, did you have an audience in mind? Example, PG-13. And this is to me, Brian, I think. Because what happens to you is is complete. Well, in chapter 6 was my doing. Like I wrote the whole thing.
Right. And you and I talked about this a lot.
We did after the fact. So when it occurred, Hubert's close encounter, it was sort of an off the fly kind of thing. It was like off the cuff. Our role playing just sort of led there, and I knew this would be a horrific way to go. We've always billed ourselves as explicit. In iTunes, you'll see that we're completely explicit. Yeah. So that basically means 18 and over. But having said that, over the course of time, we've become more sensitive to trying not to cross certain lines. Yeah. I will say that as close as we've gotten to any particular line that I felt like, ooh, maybe I overstepped this a bit.
Yeah, and we talked about that.
Yeah, we did. And we even thought about, going back and trying to retcon some stuff or
I thought it was done well, and I said we should keep it because it was a natural reaction. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There were nudes, but they were tasteful nudes.
Tasteful nudes. Well, it was weird because I sort of ended that particular episode when the close encounter occurs. Yeah. In a very gratuitous fashion. Like it was done in a gratuitous manner for the cliffhanger effect. Boom. It was a cheap shot in a lot of ways. But then, having talked with Brian and thinking about how we should proceed with this particular crux, then we sort of came up with this idea that the creatures were doing this not as a rape, quote unquote. Right. I mean, it was a rape. Right. I don't have to quote unquote it. It was rape. Yes. But it was because these creatures were actually using this to heal the cultists. Right. This act. And so while it was initially horrific to Hubert, he came to realize what was going on. So it was kind of us retconning it and digging ourselves out of that trench. So I hope that makes sense to you. But we are an explicit podcast. But on the other hand, I want everybody to be able to enjoy it without too much discomfort. Right. They should still be horrified. This is supposed to be a scary and funny podcast. So hopefully that answers your question, Brittany. So, all right, let's move along. Gabe. Yeah. Seeing all the character death around you, do you have any ideas for the next character you might have to play?
I have a backup character. I actually have two. They're
Rex doesn't count.
yes, he does, and his name's Flex.
Flex. Sorry, the R's got me.
So, okay, I guess if it doesn't count, I only have one. Some backstory on my first one. We did a demo tape when I was first joining, and me and Matt have bothered Jeremy to try and complete that scenario for about a year and a half, and it's just never going to happen.
It'll happen.
Because he played Jesse McCree, and I played Flex Rumble Crunch. And I feel like you should all ask him to see it.
Yes.
Because he doesn't listen to us. But without giving out too much away, my other backup is... He's
boyo.
He's an Italian chef who sells canned.
He's an Italian CIA agent. No, he's a very different person than Royo is. That's all I can really give away because
that was a lot.
So
I expect to use him if something happens to Roy, and I don't exactly.
But Roy will never die. We'd established that.
Yeah, that's fair. His name's Eugene. I'll tell you that.
Ooh.
I like that. That's my middle
Eugene.
name. So, Robert Patterson in chat asks, what made you choose to start with Yig as an old one, direct appearance in the story? I think that was primarily because we had already done a couple episodes, or maybe even scenarios, where there was some snake imagery. And so it just sort of made sense to carry that through to its logical conclusion. And I did some research, and I was like, okay, well, cults, blah, blah, blah. And basically all my research pointed me towards Yig. And that just seemed like a really cool hook. To get these guys involved, and then with Hubert being a snake expert, then that just sort of solidified things. So, and I just sort of like the idea of Yig as this vaguely humanoid critter trying to press in through the other side, and it just gave me the idea of the portals and everything, and also the fact that Yig is the serpent father and all that, a very sly creature who is manipulating behind the scenes. I sort of really like that. So hope that answers your question, Robert. And we'll jump into one for Matt. If they had lived long enough to decide, what would have been Detox's death row meal?
Oh gosh, a death row meal for Detox. That's a really good question for someone like her. You know what? If I had to go on record, I'd probably say that it'd be grilled cheese.
And that's it, just grilled cheese.
As weird as that sounds, there is a reason for it. But again, nobody's ever going to see that reason because they're dead.
Just eat motherboards.
Yeah, motherboard sandwiches, delicious. Okay, let's go to one for me, I guess. This is for me. It says, what are the chances of a Lovecraft Tales from Dan's point of view? It'd even be cool to intersperse that narration as the investigators begin to piece it together from Journal's notes, like how the bits of radio chatter were recorded and dropped in the mix after the raw play. So that's an interesting prospect.
Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit about something similar to that.
Yeah, and to give everybody here a little bit of inside information, inside baseball stuff. So the Dan storyline, Dan's missing. We got to find Dan. Essentially, is going to hopefully run us another 5 chapters. That's my hope and dream. Whether or not it's actually Jack and Roy still on the case, we don't know. But we've built in the mechanic where that's going to happen, so that I can plan ahead so many scenarios, and so that allows for potential for Dan to do a lot more POV interjections, whether that's tales or potentially epilogue, prologue stuff, or even just like random things that they find. I've always loved video games and movies where people are on the trail of somebody and they find little snippets of people's recordings. Like we've all played like
Fallout 76.
Yeah, exactly. You find little
That's all you find, God damn it.
I've always liked that. I've always liked it where there's like these little episodes that you can string together and figure out what's going on, and it'd be fun to do. But I think I'd have to get with Matt, and we really need to architect that. And we've already done the first one, which is Bloodsworth Island, the complex, the one they just did, and so I think maybe the next one would be a good epilogue to start. Not yet, Robert, but it's on my list. To start that sort of framework, and then we could have Matt start doing some Dan stuff and interject it. So that would be fun, I think.
Yeah, I'm always open to doing some more stuff with Dan.
Yeah. Okay, so since Robert asked about this in chat, I do have this right here. Brian, how horribly scarred is Jack's face post shotgun blast?
Yeah, that's the amazing thing. It's
Face
immaculate.
off.
There's nothing. They just swapped me out with a local nurse. Very pocked, I would think. I'd like to say it adds character. No pun intended. Oh no, there is. Yeah, I would say pretty beaten up. We did get to the hospital quickly, but not quick enough to prevent full scarring, of course. So it's not just on the face, goes up into the hairline and down into the neck as well.
I think we need some fan art on that.
I think that would be phenomenal. If anybody can give my pocked face a treatment.
Chicks dig scars, man.
Just to say Battlestar Galactica, maybe?
There's beats in Battlestar Galactica.
Roy has no burns, though.
Yeah, that's the crazy part.
Yeah, Roy was just perfectly healed. He has like
magic.
Preternational DNA.
Roy gets magic. I get Jack.
Yeah, you get shot in the face, idiot.
Yeah,
and
I'm a good driver.
To respond to a comment by Chris Parker, he says, I bet he looks like Pita Bread gone wrong. I'm sorry, Pita Bread cannot ever go wrong.
That's
Pita
right.
Bread is perfect as it is.
Oh,
leave Pita Bread alone.
I love pita bread.
All right, so next time I see you, I'm going to make you some pita bread you won't eat.
Oh, I will eat the hell out of it.
Hey, I have an idea. I could just cover my face in hummus and nobody'd know. Yeah, it just fills the holes right in.
That's funny because Matt's next character is named Hummus.
Oh!
I'll give you some of my spread.
Wait, hold on. My backup character was named Hummus.
All right, Matt, you got a question
And thank
for
you.
us?
Good night.
I do.
Sock it to us, baby.
Okay, Jeremy, this one's for you.
Joy.
Because I figured out what one of my questions should be for you. So, has there ever been a moment, either in this chapter or chapters past, where we are just so far off the trail that you want to like face palm through your webcam and go, "Oh my God, how are you guys not following these clues? What's wrong with you?" Because I know like we tend to get off track a lot and we go off side paths that don't lead anywhere. Please see the elevator incident from way back. But has there ever been a moment where you're like, "Oh my God, how do they not understand what's going on here?"
No, that was absolutely it. It was chapter 3. Yep, that was pre Gabe, and it was but I completely jot it down to my adherence to the published scenario. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like you're supposed to be able to feed, and you trust the scenario that it's going to lead you to those clues in a natural way.
Right.
But you guys were just sort of running around. And to a certain extent, my life was the same thing. Like, I could tell Brian was getting a little just
frustrated
for Clem about, basically having to go, okay, now we go back to this place. Now we go
right.
So it's a little easier when I have created the episode or the scenario, because I kind of know where all the clues are and I can gently steer them.
Yeah.
or overdo it and basically have someone slip on a thing and fall into a boat. So that's, there's all kinds of ways to go through it. But yeah, for sure, that's, I would say chapter 3 was like the first time I was like, why aren't these guys, what the fuck is going on here? And I had to kind of I had to just come up with shit on the fly just to steer you in the right direction. So that was definitely one thing.
When you're investigators like us,
we
can't find our face in a dark room.
Mm-hmm.
Face.
And to answer your question too, like your investigators, I will say traditionally haven't been overly concerned about checking everything.
That's true.
And sometimes that's great because it makes for good comedy later.
Yeah.
And other times I'm like,
it was in the last room.
Brian, just say you searched the backpack. Just say you opened the water bottle. Just say it. Just fucking say it.
And see, that's ironic because every scenario or everything I've ever played in my life, whether it's Dungeons and Dragons or video games or whatever that may be, I cover every inch. Yeah. I'm very, very thorough.
Oh yeah, I co-op games with him all the time, and
I feel like I'm in a story, and like this is how my character would do it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, oops, no backpack for me.
Open the door, nothing there. Close the door.
That's a door that's bolted to 3 locks. We're good.
That's right. That's right.
We're all right.
Gabe, you got a question for us?
For Brian, as Jack is coming up close on tying Dan for longest to deal with Roy, what are some tips and tricks for how you get through it?
I think I have developed a deep admiration for Roy. I see where he's coming from. I see where he's been, and I honestly think that, especially in this last one, we became a little bit closer than we thought we would. Just not having Dan there as the buffer, the friend and the colleague, you know what I mean? But I'm kind of feeling like Jack is almost considering him an acquaintance.
If you survive this scenario, you'll tie Dan for the all-time record.
Yep, and then we'll have to be friends. I mean, I think that's part of the rules.
Yeah, and then I'll give up on looking for Dan.
And then you'll just walk to the nearest cliff and go, whoo.
All right, Brian, you got a question for us?
I do. I actually have one for you, Jeremy. When running a scenario, what is your favorite thing that the players do?
Ooh, that's a pretty broad
Stay on
question.
track.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well,
but there's got to be something that you're like,
when they don't try and shoot phones out of bartenders.
Or when they do.
Well, you said players, right? So not necessarily characters. What do I like when
the players? Yes.
Yes,
not the characters.
What I like best, the best thing I like of all it is that when there is a perfect triangular diagram of someone who is trying to go off the rails, another one who is not quite certain, maybe too preoccupied with their own thing, and then someone who steps up and says, "Hey guys, get your shit together, let's go."
Yeah.
Right. And whether or not that actually takes place, it remains to be seen. But I love that dynamic when everybody's sort of in a push-pull dynamic, and the worst thing in the world, obviously, first and foremost, we're playing a game, but we're also doing a show. And it has to be interesting. And we've had some things where we're all just sort of sitting here going, what are you going to do?
Please see the contented cow for reference material.
So I think I've gotten better at filling in those gaps. But when that happens, that's the worst thing. But the best thing is when you guys are all preoccupied with some aspect and maybe they're slightly divergent. That's when I have a lot of fun. So, hope that answered your question. We do have a question from Robert Pattison. Jeremy, have you ever considered purposely giving someone a red herring to see how far it goes? I know that sounds pretty blasphemous for a keeper. And I will say no.
Next question.
if there's a red herring that it's built into the scenario, I would never throw someone a red herring. I believe I have done it in early episodes, and it's a dead mistake. Not only because it's in the Call of Cthulhu, you're sending them down a side quest that will inevitably end nowhere, but it also, for the show's sake, we need to keep on a timeline. So we have a very finite window where we play. We usually record about an hour and a half, 2 hours tops, and that whittles down to about an hour episode that I can, edit realistically within a certain time frame. And then, and beyond that, no one wants to listen to us drag on for 30 episodes.
Yeah.
So I right now I'm committed to like basically 10 episode arcs. That seems to work perfectly. So that's what we're aiming for from here on out. So.
And why would giving a fish to a player matter?
Exactly, to cut down the tallest tree in the wood with a herring.
He loves MacGuffins, though.
Doc MacGuffins?
If I build it into the scenario, then yes, absolutely. I love being able to sidetrack them slightly.
Yeah.
But the problem is, these guys aren't necessarily being super rigorous anyways, right? I mean, that's just their style of play, which is awesome. And so you certainly don't want to waste 3 episodes on someone going the complete wrong direction. So, anyways, I hope that answers your question, Robert. We do have another one here from Brittany. Jeremy, what was in the basement? And this actually harkens back to a question that was submitted to us here too. I think this was to me. What goodies, horrors were lurking in store for the players that they didn't run into?
Oh, yeah.
So that's very similar. So yes, there was another level, sub-level in the basement. This is a published scenario, so if you have any intention of playing this scenario, you may want to tune out at this point. But so beneath is a whole other level that is basically radioactive.
Ooh.
Yeah. So there was also a radiation thing that was a potential horror and danger to the players, as well as more of the black ooze, if you want to call it that. Really, the only living dangers were that guy whose name I can't remember for whatever reason, and the rat.
Scott something, I think.
Scott. Yeah, it wasn't Scott Dorward.
Scott Pilgrim.
Scott Pilgrim versus the word now, and the rat. Those were the two sort of things that were. And if you listen to the epilogue, you know what became of them. So I hope that answers your question, Brittany, and that was also submitted to us. I got one here for Matt. When developing your next character, how much do you base the character on what is missing from the team, e.g. computer use, combat skills, versus what you want to play?
Usually when it comes to me setting up one of my other characters, I like to start by focusing a central skill on something that we're missing. For Detox, it was that computer use, seeing as how terrible we all were with, looking things up.
For Matt, Brian, and Gabe as players.
Yes.
What's been the most exciting moment for you as players? When you look back, how much of that excitement, tension do you attribute to the nerves leading up to the dice result versus the narrative, and how much does that affect you?
I'm going to answer real quick. I'm never good at dice rolls. There's only been a very few times that it's actually affected me as a player, where the dice roll has been crap and it's like shut my mood down or got me mad or, a couple times, but very few.
Well, I guess I can't drive.
Yep. Yep. That's one of them. Yes. It's a car. I've done it my whole life, yet I can't drive. So that's one of the few where the dice have, but the narrative, I think, really drives me as a player to want to keep moving forward and keep going.
And what was the most exciting moment for you as a player?
That's
That's
a
the
tough
main
one.
question.
Probably in the playing Sam in the 50s. I think it was our first scenario. And going to St. James Place.
Oh, rip Dildo, I know.
That was the second one, wasn't it?
Second one. Yeah. I think it was.
No.
Going to no,
because the first one was the Thin Man.
Yeah. So second, right?
Yep.
Driving through the hills,
for
driving down from St. James to get help. I don't remember what I was doing, and having the creature and hitting the creature and having that confidence as a character to actually push forward and take control of everything and make the story mine. I think that was the first time I really wasn't just going with the story and the scenario, but actually realized that I can have control as well. I think that was the part where it got me excited to stay with this and play scenario after scenario and move forward with it.
Cool. Gabe?
So I agree. I'm much more in tune to the
Sam?
narrative. I'm very in tune with the narrative because I like storytelling quite a bit. I like creative writing, all that stuff. Disregard what I said a couple minutes ago. Yeah, if you all bug me enough, I will write a scenario. I don't care. I'll put that out there for all the fans. But as a character who's so reckless, there's a lot of moments that have had me worried, but the one moment really where I didn't even really exactly feel in danger, but I felt the most worried was that whole sacrifice where I lost Bugsy and all everyone I gave a crap about.
Mm-hmm.
That was the moment that it was like, okay, if I die, I'll die. But I cared more about them as a character. So that was really the turning point, I guess, so to speak.
Nice. Matt?
If I had to pick, I'd probably be a tie between the only 2 times I've ever pushed a roll, considering the fact that both times have been successes, and I don't take pushing things lightly. So every single time I do it, it's always a do or die moment, and it's like I don't have much of a choice. Whether that was, especially at the end of chapter 6 with missing that shot, trying to stop Tommy Ray from finishing his ceremony. It was like I was sitting there thinking, either he puts that box in there and everything ends and I die, or, something else is going to happen and I'm going to die. So I might as well just go for it. But even though I had made up that mindset, it's always super nerve wracking and super amazing to see that result at the end of that push, knowing that I had, doubled down on everything and it was this or I'm leaving the table kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah, that's interesting because you guys had somewhat different points of view on that, and it sounds like more about the dice rolls for Matt than the other guys. So, but yeah, that's true. You're the one who has pushed the the die rolls in very extreme circumstances, which would necessarily give you a lot of angst potentially. So,
I have a question for Gabe.
Shoot.
Bang.
What is your theory, Gabe or Roy, on the elixir of life?
I kind of think that it's bullcrap, and he's just looking for something to take his mind off of everything, and he's decided to put all of his energy into that and kind of gone crazy.
Yeah?
Yeah. That's my theory.
I'm sticking to it. Dang it. We back. Okay. Cool.
Hey, Detox. Oh, never mind.
All right.
I hate you.
I'll answer one for me here that someone submitted. How far out do you usually plan ahead, and how much have you had to set aside in favor of the guys going in a different direction?
3 inches.
Yeah, so the guys go completely off balance. No. So basically, I do plan ahead within the scenario. Well, you just heard me say that for the campaign arc, the scenarios, I've planned out maybe another 5, right? So, but the nitty-gritties aren't quite there yet. So all the details aren't completely fleshed in. But at the scenario level, I do plan ahead quite easily because, again, it's that the horror genre tends to like a very narrow straight because you got to get at the solution to the problem.
Yeah.
And so I do usually plan ahead, but if these guys diverge within reason, then it's perfectly fine. They might be able to get at a certain clue or unearth a certain piece of information that I did not plan on, and I'll just adapt it on the fly. Or we'll do things like the whole Peter Lorre screen door in situation.
Mm-hmm.
Basically that was Gabe just saying, we're going to hit the screen door in this little town. And, of course, I didn't have a screen door in plan, so I just did everything on the fly. So
That was great.
So hopefully that answers your question. I do plan ahead, but I need to leave room to do the allow some happy accidents to happen. So there's that. Here's one for the group. How old were you when you read your first Lovecraft story?
Ooh,
11.
good one.
Well, here's the thing. I'm sure most of you know Jeremy's my brother, but he's my older brother by 7 years?
Yeah, I'm 51. Going to be 52.
45.
What's your social?
He read it to me when I was 7.
Probably sounds right.
I first got the taste of that, and then I think followed by the Books of Blood was shortly after. So I've been exposed my entire life. So that's my earliest memory of hearing Lovecraft.
Nice.
Thank you. I'm
Matt?
warped.
If my memory serves me, I believe the first time I found Lovecraft was in an AP English class when I was back in high school. Basically, we had an assignment from our teacher where he gave us a list of authors, and he said basically pick someone you've never heard of that you know nothing about and go and study them. And Lovecraft just happened to be on that list, and it just, for whatever reason happened to be who I landed on, and I ended up, really loving the material and kind of sticking with it for longer than I thought I would.
How long?
About 3 inches.
That's what I thought.
Hey now. And for my part, I think I actually came to it a little bit older, even though I actually read a lot of Lovecraft comic stuff and didn't realize it was based on Lovecraft. So I grew up, when I was probably your age, 11, 12, 13. We lived in Florida, and one of our downstairs neighbors had this chest. It was like this old wooden chest as their coffee table. And you'd open up the chest, and inside were Vampirella, Creepy, Eerie, all the old Warren magazines, all the animated stuff. And the Creepy and Eerie stuff always had a Lovecraft adaptation in it.
Did he give you weird Kool-Aid to sit by his couch and open the chest?
He was Dad's friend at the time. Like the couples had friends, so
that's worse.
Yeah, whatever. and so that was my first exposure to anything Lovecraftian, but I didn't realize it was Lovecraft until much, much later.
Right.
Probably when I was 14 or 15, and I started reading Stephen King pretty heavily. And Stephen King, of course, references many Lovecraft stuff, and even calls out Lovecraft as an influence in a lot of his books. And that's how I ran across it. So I was probably, in the neighborhood of 10 or 11 when I first encountered one of his stories in comic form. And then much later, probably 14 or 15, when I, introduced it to Brian much later down the pike. So, yeah, that was it.
Thanks.
Yeah, baby. Here's another one for the group. Is it difficult to come up with recommendos for each episode?
No.
No, we do a lot of stuff outside of this.
I literally have a Google Keep note that is a long-running list of games that I have basically played, and I'm like, yeah, I like this. This is really cool.
Yeah.
And so, literally, whenever I need a recommendo, I just pull up my Google Keep note and go, yep, that one. And that's where I get my recommendo from.
Yep. I watch a lot of television and movies.
It's very hard sometimes. I run out fast, and usually when I think of some, I'll like think of a bunch at once and write them all down. But I have one written down right now, so I'm gonna have to really think for this next coming up scenario.
Okay, everyone, time for your 5 recommendos for the end of the Q&A.
And go! And for me, it's really no problem. I consume a lot of media, so it's a lot of movies, so it's never a problem. I can usually find something within a given week or two.
I just don't like things as much as you guys do.
And you're a little busy too, college
Right.
and work.
So
So
I could recommend like 50 different wrestling shows, but it'd be kind of,
and this
hey,
week,
watch Raw, July 7th, 2012.
part
It
2.
was a good one.
It was a good one. Everybody,
Seek it
did
out.
you like it?
Seek it out.
You're great.
It looks like Chris Parker has a question for us in chat. He asks, what's everyone's favorite bit of improv they've seen in the campaign?
Ooh, I think I have a few, but I think with the taco fish and the tapas. Ooh, I love small plates. Just the over and over again when you're trying to come up with a destination where everybody's going to meet and everybody's serious, and then we break it with like, oh, what do they serve there? Small plates. Ooh, I love small plates. Just the little fun spots like that. But the taco fish is probably my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was fun, and that's from near the beginning, right? Yeah, that's a long time ago.
Still going.
It's still going.
Mm-hmm.
Taco fish forever.
Absolutely.
One of my favorites is more recent.
Mm-hmm.
We make a lot of visits to the Screen Door Inn
Yes.
because I'm a big fan of screen doors. And from Jeremy, one of my favorites recently was, I don't know if it was improv, so maybe I'm lying. Maybe he had it planned. But he just said that he didn't ever plan for us to go to the Screen Door Inn. When we arrived and I was like a platinum club holder and they had my picture on the wall.
Yes.
I
And
felt
everybody
so
knows you.
powerful.
Oh, you're Roy Arroyo?
Yeah,
It's very important to Roy that he has like a lot of power in these very like nonsensical, unimportant situations.
Yeah, and that harkens back to one of the previous questions where it was like one of those things where I'm like, it was presented to me. Gabe basically said, "I'm going to go to the Screen Door Inn," and I was like, "Okay, I didn't plan for that. Yeah, let's just take it to the next level. Let's just go to the next level." So I came up with that whole platinum thing. Yes, oh yes, sir, you're on the wall. Is this your picture? Yeah, that whole thing was just like completely off the cuff, and
nice.
Yeah, that was probably one of my favorites too, because it was an in the moment realization that, okay, I need to really lean into this the way that someone else wants me to, and that I necessarily, I have to trust in them, right? So it was a free fall situation.
Yeah.
And I just like, okay, let's do this. Let's see how far we can take this whole thing. So we went the Thai massage. We took it to all the levels that it went to.
Gift baskets.
And that's in the neighborhood of side quest red herring stuff, but you can only let that go so far, right?
Yeah.
Before you got to get back to the actual business.
Draw it back in.
But yeah, Matt, how about you?
I'd have to say my favorite was Hell House, when we were in the church digging through documents and Dan failed his stealth roll on the way out of the pastor's office, and I slammed the door and everyone looks and I'm like, oh great, now what do I do? And I just immediately defaulted to the I really have to use the bathroom line. And not only the fact that works, but that all the crap I made up about eating, too much of my brand prune flakes for breakfast, and that I rolled well enough that the sheriff was like, "Oh yeah, I get that. Go right ahead." In fact, it was like so incredibly absurd that the guy was just like, "Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. There you go. It's right over there."
You made your
Extra
roll.
teepee under the counter.
Yeah.
All right, Brian.
What?
Whenever Jeremy yells "chase scene," do you get PTSD flashbacks?
Yes. Any other
Chasing.
questions? Oh, driving. Why does it have to be a skill?
Right.
Everyone knows how to drive. No, it was frustrating. I know that was all part of it, and like regardless of what you do, you're going to hit something, or regardless of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the frustration was that the preparation going into that scenario was so extensive, and then I'm out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that was my favorite because of that. I was able to play that other character.
Right.
And Herbert was able to get me through that and laugh and have a great time and be completely different than I expected to be.
But in the moment,
I was pissed. I was furious. And you could also read it on my face.
Yeah. Also, within the same chapter, I love the play we had coming off of both me and Herbert rolling poor sanity and ending up with phobias. Especially the fact that Dan ended up being, afraid of plants in an area that was totally overgrown with plants. And so I ended that episode with him sitting, out front on the lawn, individually cutting each weed out from where he was standing so he would feel safer.
Hey, it's legal now.
exactly.
Other than my first, I think that was my favorite scenario.
Yeah.
All right, Gabe, tell us what's in Roy's last will and testament.
Oh.
Everything
goes to.
Yeah. Well, it's subject to change because people like my kids could easily come out and suck one day, and I could easily decide which one gets it all. But as of right now, it's a rat race. Raymond gets it all right now. Yeah, I'm gonna leave Greta with like a couple grand so that way she doesn't die. But like, that's of course, if she doesn't die first, because crazy. She's under a lot of stress. And
Poor
while
Greta.
I'm living the high life. But right now, Raymond gets it all, and
the champagne of beers.
And the rest of them get like a note that explains what they could have done better to get the inheritance.
The inheritance. Ooh, I bet
My God, you're ruining everything.
Can I have a hug?
All right, so
That's
Robert
funny.
Patterson asks in chat, what are everyone's favorite mythos creatures, ones you'd want to see show up? Do you guys really want to see any mythos creatures show up?
I was going to say, there's a very, very blatant distinction between my favorite mythological creature and something that I would like to see in our game. In terms of mythological creatures, I think far and away werewolves are my favorite.
Yes.
Ooh.
I love.
Tell me more.
No. Werewolves are silly and they're just child's play. Don't put them in.
I love werewolves.
yeah.
I would not want to run into one in Call of Cthulhu. That would not be pretty.
I think mine would probably be vampires, to be honest with you. The in the same category, that supernatural, just because of the intelligence factor.
Fight me IRL.
Bela Lugosi.
No, probably not Bella. He was on a lot of heroin.
Nosferatu.
But yeah, I think that would be kind of cool. Just the ever-knowing vampire that's kind of pulling the strings from a distance would be really cool.
Nice.
To find out that everything that you've done and every clue you've found has been directed, like the Keeper does.
Gabe?
Well, mine is Call of Cthulhu based.
Or a wrestler.
Well, they're not necessarily mythological.
Santos.
John Cena is my favorite mythological creature. However, I would not want to see him in the game.
Oh God, no.
All right, so my favorite are the deep ones,
Yeah.
just because they're like mermaids as they should be, and way creepier. And
Merfolk.
I like the whole idea of like the whole Twilight Zone-esque, oh, they're taking over the town and we're right under our noses and that kind of thing that I've seen them utilized in other stories I've read. And their mixing that they do. I'm just a big fan of the deep ones.
You like the Dunwich horror thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think mine would be Migos. I've always
Migos?
Migos, yeah.
The rapper?
Yeah, Migos. Yeah. No, Migo. So, I always loved like this alien technology that could basically extract your brain and then fly it off to some other dimension while your body remained behind. I always loved that concept, and I thought it was, as creepy as Lovecraft stuff could get with a lot of the zombification and ghouls and things like that. I was always sort of taken a little bit more with the sci-fi aspects, and that that there was this alien race that not only potentially had created humanity on Earth, but essentially could take you away, just pluck your brain out and take you away to this thing. So I love that stuff. So Migos is probably my direct thing. So Chris Parker asks in chat, if the characters were members of a D&D party instead of investigators of the unknown, what would be their races and classes?
This is a fun one.
That is a great one, actually. I love that.
I do wear classes.
Haha. I'd say Dan would probably end up just being a human paladin.
Ooh.
Big, bulky, full on two-handed sword. Or maybe a large axe. Detox. Detox, I would probably place as a goblin rogue.
Yep, that sounds right.
Kind of, short and different from everything else around, but at the same time really sneaky and can be, pretty intelligent and creative.
And notice Chris Parker was very careful not to say what would be your alignment.
I would think that Jack would probably be human, but like a ranger would be my guess.
A Power Ranger?
Yeah, the blue one.
Oh, now me, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm always a paladin, so he has to be a paladin, and I think it fits him because paladins are pretty good when they're chaotic at skewing their ideas to be what they want them to be rather than what they are. And Roy Arroyo's good at that. And then he would be a dragonborn because he's slippery like that, and he's good at being undetected if he needs to be. However, when he doesn't need to be, he's one of the loudest people around.
Future one shot inbound?
Also, Roy Arroyo can breathe underwater forever. So write that in the notes.
frogs.
That's officially canon.
So he's Argonian.
Because of the giant
I was
frogs.
going to say Argonians then.
Well, dragonborns are the Argonians of D&D, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep.
Nice.
I could see Roy being like an Oathbreaker paladin and be like, no.
That's what I'm going for, bro.
All right, we got a couple questions here to wrap up. Brian, are there any new motivations for Jack Whiteside now that the story with his sister has come to a close?
Yeah, I think Jack has pretty much replaced his sister with
Roy Arroyo.
Dan. No, God, no. With Dan, trying to find and rescue him. He always needs somebody to rescue.
Mm-hmm. That sounds more like a paladin than a ranger.
Huh. Well, once he finds him, he'll shoot him.
Fuck you, Dan.
Yeah, I think that's his focus and his mission now. And once he gets focused on something, it consumes him, and he's got that going.
And I'll add a little something extra there. Jack Whiteside does have other motivations beyond.
Shut up.
So moving on, for the group, we have one. Do you guys have any plans to do side session scenarios run by one of the players, like the Christmas special in between chapters? I don't know. What do you guys think? Anybody here
Ask me enough times.
So it sounds
Gabe.
like Gabe is up for it. And I
You
know-
can, if you want to create a Patreon level that forces me to write something, you can do that.
Oh God! And I assume Brian doesn't have any interest in running a scenario.
I don't know if I could, to be completely
You
honest.
certainly could. You certainly could. I mean, I make it up a lot of the time.
No, I understand
Yeah.
that. But I would be like, you enter
it's
a
a
room.
one-off.
In
It's
the
a
corner,
one-off.
in the corner is a chest. You win. You opened it. Let's go get a beer.
Yippee, we all win. and I know Matt, you enjoyed your first run at it.
Yeah,
but
it wasn't bad.
it was not quite what you expected.
No. And I maybe somewhere down the line for another one of our holiday spectaculars, I'll give it another shot.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll have to see what comes up in the future.
Yeah. I'd have to prep a lot if I were to do something.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it is simply a lot of prep to begin with. And I'll just interject that I encourage these guys to, if they want to do something like that, then awesome. We are also open to one shots kept by someone else, a
Liz.
special guest. Yeah,
John Cena.
John Cena, if he wants to. Chris,
Hey,
Parker,
John
Chris
Cena,
Parker,
if you want to
Brittany
run a
Ross,
scenario for our
Robert Pattinson.
podcast.
So we're open to discussions to do something fun. It's particularly for the one-offs, it would be kind of amazing. And we're also looking to be able to bring in our Patreon folks to either play one-offs. We've done that in the past. Rolling Boxcars did the Reservoir Dogs thing with us, which was pretty nice.
That was fun.
Lots of fun. So we'll see where that takes us. So let's see here. I got one for me, and then one other one, and then we're done with my stuff. Which is easier, writing a small, detailed, contained episode of the Lovecraft Tales, or writing the bigger, looser overview for a scenario? Has there ever been much material that's gone unused in a scenario that you've not been able to reintroduce later? So it is much easier to do the small, detailed, contained episode of the Lovecraft Tales because it's pure fiction, and I'm a writer first and foremost. So for me, that is the most joyful experience. I really do love doing the scenarios and sort of plugging in all the clues and things that they're going to have to do. But has there been material that's gone unused? Not in a scenario. Like I said previously, I've put some seeds and clues that I could potentially use for future episodes, and some of those I may actually still do. But there's a lot of stuff that's fallen by the wayside that I can never retrieve, that I thought maybe I'd interject it into a tale and then reintroduce it later on in that particular episode, but then never got around to it. So hopefully that answers that question. And I have one final question here.
All right. Last one, boys and girls.
And I don't know if do you guys have any other questions in your pocket?
I have mine full.
Okay. Well, I think Gabe, did you have one final one for me?
It's kind of been asked.
Okay.
So.
Great. So the final
I have a question. Why did you guys not grab the paper shredders? After all that, you just
Because I keep calling them printers. That's why.
Exactly. Okay. So this question is: has anyone listened back to previous episodes and wondered why they played the way they did?
I have not listened back to previous episodes. I like to listen to them as they come out.
You guys keep talking. I'll be right back.
There's a little bit that I miss as playing. So listening back, it actually fills the story in more for me, or I'll pick up on something that I might have missed if I was checking notes or stuff like that. So I like to listen to them. right when they come out, so I'm prepared for the next time we record.
I've had a couple of moments, where I've gone back and listened, and I'd be like, but so, like, a lot of the stuff that I see is like I go back and I go, I missed a really great opportunity for this really great joke that I just now came up with.
Yeah.
And why can't I go back and put it in? Because it's the most amazing joke ever, and now no one's going to hear it.
Yeah, it's all right.
But in terms of going back and going, oh, that was a really stupid gameplay decision. Why didn't I do X instead of Y? Not really. I mean, I think that's half the fun of the whole tabletop role playing thing is I like to stick by my decisions and be like, okay, I made my bed and now I'm gonna have to sleep in it.
Mm-hmm. He gave you a bed?
Yeah.
That's not fair.
For me, I like Brian, I don't totally listen back that much, but I have done spot stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I generally have a pretty meticulous decision-making plan as I know it's bizarre to think when I'm going through the motions. So I make these decisions and I understand where they could go. And I've really, to this point, not been upset with a decision I've really made other than, things that I feel like I physically couldn't have done, like saving Bugsy and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's really just, I wish I could have done that more than, that would have been better.
Yeah. But again, living in the moment, that's the whole fun of it. Is like you're actually in your character at that time and you're playing them like it's real, and in the decisions you're making, it's that snap decision that you have to say, you know what, I just have to try this. And then if it doesn't work, that's probably what you would have done every time in that situation,
You're saying that this is not real life?
No, this is real life. Wake up, Gabe.
Just fantasy.
Roy, wake up. Roy,
honey, we're at Grandma's house. Put your shoes on.
Oh, honey, come on.
Yeah, and I've purposely resisted the temptation to make this was all a dream.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, but whenever
Yeah.
we find Dan, Roy is gonna wake up and realize that it was just a long car ride.
It's just a long car ride, and he's 12.
As the chat indicates, we all miss Bugsy.
Yeah,
I miss playing him, and obviously we miss him. So
I want a Bugsy one shot, or like a Bugsy and Roy, like as they're coming up through the forest together.
Ready? Yep. No, we need to make the Bugsy and Roy trip to the Screen Door Factory a real thing.
Yeah,
that needs to be a real living one shot.
we can
It's just
do
an
it.
hour and a half of Bugsy and Roy in a Screen Door Factory.
they end up in jail because they couldn't get the best deal. We got in a fist fight
is it a LARP?
with each other. Yeah.
Yes, we're actually going to film in a real factory.
Oh, God.
It'll be an
Magic
Oscar-nominated
missile.
short film. To one up you, Chris Parker, who recommended Bugsy in Hell, I'm gonna recommend Roy tries to save Bugsy from hell.
Nice.
So we're doing Dante's Inferno, but instead of Dante, it's Roy.
And I don't go to heaven or purgatory.
Roy's
Skip
Inferno.
that shit. Well, guys, that's it. We've come to the end of this episode of the Lovecraft Tapes. Thank you for listening and watching.
Yes.
And a very special thank you to all our loyal listeners who contributed questions to this Q&A episode. Versus Roy and Bugsy.
That would
versus
be
the Army
awesome.
of Dragons. I would totally read that.
Sally
Watch that.
Forth.
Sally Forth. I basically said it. We will begin Chapter 8, Tryst, sometime in March. So stay tuned by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Google Music, Podbean, Spotify, Stitcher, or anywhere you download your regular podcasts. If you like what you hear, please leave us a review. Meanwhile, you can find us at thelovecrafttapes.com with links to all our recommendos and social media channels, including Facebook, Reddit, YouTube, and our Discord server, where you can chat with us in real time. You can find me, Jeremy, on Twitter at Lovecraft Tapes.
And if anybody wants to take shots in the dark as to who my next character will be that I'm not going to at all answer to, you can find me on Twitter at TheRealWeirdKid.
And if you want to ask yourself, why does this guy even have a Twitter? You can find me at Lovecraft Gabe.
And I'll follow up with that as this exact same. at Brian Podcast on Twitter.
All right, guys. Well, until next time, roll for sanity.
Spot
There's-
hidden.
There's
Spy
the
hidden.
next time.
I'm sorry, spy hidden.
Drive auto. Roll for
bad.
drive auto, bro.
No,
Drive auto,
shut
Brian.
up. I'm out.
All right. Thanks to all our live chatters. We appreciate you guys tuning in. This was the best group we've had so far. And we love you all. Thank you so much for supporting us. And we will see you in March.
Thanks, guys.
Sooner.
Have a good one.
If not sooner, we'll see.
Bye-bye.